how do you create that space then that allows people to be vulnerable and want to tell you some of these, especially coming from some backgrounds where therapy might be the fifth option.
Yeah.
Right?
So after Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
The miracle didn't come yet. It's funny. That's so cool to hear you describe it that way. I call therapy, it's brain surgery without a scalpel.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
What I mentioned earlier about going into people's scariest spaces, about slowing down with them, about being vulnerable myself, about my deep humanity, being willing to sit with all sorts of things that might be more intense, or, you know, even sitting with silence. I'm very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I think that bringing, you know what, to be honest, I forgot your question. I just really.
No, that's okay. just that idea of creating that space with somebody. Okay.
So bringing in the silence, the willingness to sit with people, assuming that they have strengths, assuming that they have a deep core humanity, you know, sharing my fears, all of these things. So you create that space because we do it all the time. That's why I'm having trouble. I'm like, how do I describe it?
Yeah, I mean, it is weird. It's like, tell me how to drive. Well, I just do it. It's so automatic, right?
Oh, here it is. Okay, it came back to me. Presence is a lot more powerful. I know I said we use silence and sitting with it and presence and all of these things, but people have gone through the world. Like I described, you know, growing up as a little black girl in South Central, who was giving me time of day, you know? Yes, members of my community. Yes, members of my family. But we had issues, like, because of the racism, because of the systemic, like, oppression, like, having somebody who has an official title, so me, the therapist, coming in and taking you incredibly seriously. People don't typically get that. Out in the world in general, we don't validate each other. We aren't as loving as we should be. And now I'm here creating the space for your deepest, darkest, scariest parts to be the most precious thing to me. I find that to be the thing that tends to get people, I guess, to get their lid unflipped, to get them to a place where they can sort of begin to soothe and then be open to accepting the help. And then much of the time with people who have a lot of trauma, you kind of sort of can't go in through the frontal lobe. Like their lid is too flipped. And so I often do this for myself, and I support my clients to do this as well. Like, we might have to get in the body, you know. I've certainly asked clients who are African American women, like, girl, let's twerk. Like, we need to move right now. Like, literally, we have to get in our bodies. This is a part of the resistance strategies that people already come in with. You know, I tend to know very well mine, if you're an African American person, a woman in particular, you know. But for people who are gender expansive, for people who are recent immigrants, like, just, it's about learning as much as I can, and then again interviewing and asking specifically, what does your grandmother do? What does your mom do? What do you do? What helps you feel good? We often have that question, what are your coping strategies? And nobody knows what that is. People are like, I don't have any. And then you go through and read the rest, and you see, you know, if you ask, what do they like to do? It's like, oh, I like to read. I like to stare at the wall and look at the different colors on my grandmother's, like, you know, thing that she painted. Like, they have a lot of them. So when you interview for them, then you can find all these nuances of how they resist, and you can bring those into the room.
Yeah, there's such a power in asking a question versus making an assumption, right? Yeah. And I think there's also a power in recognizing that cultures express all of this very differently. And so I cannot assume that I understand when I'm going into meeting with someone, even if they're Irish, that I know theirs, because they might be Northern Ireland and my family's from South, Ireland or something like that, right? So I even cannot make those kinds of assumptions as well. That is a standard thing, I think, across the board in the work that we're doing with therapy. And some of the things that you've put out, and we can put links to some of your stories and the stuff that you've published already, I think really broach that so nicely, where you're telling these various stories for people to question their own assumptions, right? If there's something I don't ever want to do, it's being stuck in the idea that I already know it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't ever want to do that.
I have certainly made that mistake with other Black women clients. You know, they're coming in and I'm like, oh my God, sis, it's so good to see you. Like, and they're like, so I'm like, oh, you know, it is an art to connect with anybody, including if you share multiple identities. And sometimes that can be a little more, that can create a different kind of resistance because people don't want to suffer yet another set of stereotypes. Just because I'm Black doesn't mean this. And that's incredibly valid, you know? Yeah. So we are dancers. We are professional Cirque du Soleil dancers. Yeah. That's how nuanced and complicated this is, you know? So pretty much anything you hear me say, like I'm applying a piece of it at a time, combined with other things, sprinkle with some salt and pepper. Like it's always so strategic the way that we do it.